Hey everyone, I want to remind you that we are giving away a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Nintendo Switch bundle. There is a Gleam.io link down in the description to enter, and I wish all of you luck. Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Prime News, and we got a lot of great stories, so let's just jump right into that. Yes, I know some of you guys know I took that from Philip DeFranco. Sorry. That being said, well, the first story is coming from Nintendo's president, Furukawa, and he decided to tell us at the end of a report on their quarterly financial results, which is our next story, that there will be more DLC being created for their big games on Nintendo Switch. Now, these games obviously would include things like Breath of the Wild, or Splatoon, or Mario Odyssey, stuff like that. Mario Odyssey doesn't even have any paid DLC, so I think he's in referencing to stuff like that, where we could start to see paid DLC for Super Mario Odyssey. And heck, maybe there's more Zelda DLC in the works, and we just don't know about it yet. So again, this is part of his plan heading into next year to create more and more revenue for Nintendo. Now, he did note that there is no more surprise announcements coming for this year, no more Switch games. The holiday lineup is set. And he did note that the Nintendo Switch Online users, well, it turns out that 50% of people that were playing Nintendo Switch Online before ended up buying a year-long annual pass for the Nintendo Switch Online service. So that's 50% that bought that. That also means there's 50% that didn't. Those 50% buy the individual membership. Did only a few of them. We don't know, but hey, I mean, I guess we now have some idea of how many Nintendo Switch Online users there are. If I had to ballpark it, we're probably looking in the 6 million-ish range. Now, let's move into the next story, because this is obviously one of the big ones from today, and that is Nintendo's financial results. Well, it turns out their quarterly results for Switch are not very good in terms of what they were projecting for the year, but are actually up year on year. It's a really confusing time. So let's just dive right into the details of that. So the Nintendo Switch is currently at lifetime to date of 22.86 million units. This does mean it is officially past the Nintendo GameCube, which is at 21.74 million units. Official numbers from Nintendo. They did sell 3.19 million Nintendo Switches this past fiscal quarter that ran through September. For the fiscal year, they have sold 5.07 million total Switch units. They are still forecasting 20 million Nintendo Switch units through April of next year for the current fiscal year. And they are saying that 24.17 million pieces of software sold in this last quarter for a total of 42.13 million pieces of software for the current fiscal year, with a lifetime of 111 million software units. Now, they are forecasting 100 million total software units for this fiscal year. And of note, the 3DS itself appears to have tanked. It has only sold 340,000 units for the past fiscal quarter. This is like worldwide, and only 1 million total for the entire fiscal year. So what do we learn from that? Well, we learned that Switch needs to sell almost 15 million units over the next 6 months in order for it to hit its projections. Now, holidays coming up, and that could account for maybe half of that. But where's the other half going to come from? Well, maybe they got a strong kick in the 2019. Maybe they think Pokemon and Smash are going to be that big. Furukawa did note that he realized when they announced the 20 million mark that they were kind of shooting for the stars, that they weren't necessarily 100% confident that they could hit 20 million units for this year, but they wanted to put it out there as a potentially attainable goal. I think obviously the overall goal at Nintendo is to sell more Switches this fiscal year than last fiscal year, and they did sell about 300,000 more Nintendo Switches this fiscal quarter than last fiscal quarter, so they are maybe on pace to potentially do that. But we'll have to wait and see what happens in the next quarter, which will include October, November, and December, some of the biggest sales months of the year for Nintendo. That's going to be where we find out if Switch's momentum is basically nosedived, or Switch's momentum is just fine, and they're just waiting for more major game releases. The Switch this year has relied basically on Nintendo's B tier of games like Mario Tennis Aces and Kirby, but they've also tossed in exclusives like, Octopath Traveler. But again, a lot of these would be more B tier games. The A+ Nintendo Switch exclusives haven't really been around all year, since what, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 in December of last year. This year has been featured a lot of third-party ports, a lot of indie games, a lot of Wii U ports, and then Nintendo's B tier of games. Until, obviously, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee lands on November 16th. And then the big one, the one we're all hyped for, the one we aren't sure if it's going to be a system seller or not, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And the reason we say we're not sure is Smash Bros. Has traditionally not been a long-term sales booster for Nintendo, but it might be different this time around because it is also the only Smash Bros. Game to ever combine everything together. So if you've ever played a Smash Bros. Game in the past, this game could have appeal to you in that all of your favorite characters, most of your favorite stages, are all going to be in a single game. So again, that could give you the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe style appeal. And before we move on, if you're actually curious on how Switch is doing compared to systems of the past, well, here's a chart from ZHugeX over on Twitter that shows how Switch is doing in comparison to the rest of Nintendo's systems. And as you can see, it is now officially tracking below the Nintendo Wii, but ahead of the Nintendo 3DS. So, that's kind of nice. But here's what it actually looks like compared to other systems out there, like the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, etc. And as you can tell, the tracking is very, very close, like within a hair or two of the PlayStation 4, which we all know the PlayStation 4 appears to be well on its way to 100 million units sold. So yes, there's been a lot of stories flying out there right now that PlayStation 4 right now, this past quarter, is stomping all over Nintendo Switch, but PlayStation 4 had major titles come out this past quarter while Nintendo's didn't. If you actually look at the comparable data of how long PlayStation was on the market compared to how long Switch has been on the market, the data is very, very similar, and Nintendo Switch is obviously still trending in a highly positive direction. Now, speaking of games, Nintendo did also update their lifetime to date sales for Switch games. We're going to stay away from the Wii U and 3DS side of things because they're just not, they're almost not relevant anymore. I think it's official, the 3DS is dead. So let's just talk about what's happening with the Switch side of things. So Super Mario Odyssey is now at 12.17 million units. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is at 11.71 million units. Breath of the Wild has notably crossed the 10 million mark on Switch alone, moving 10.28 million units. This does make it the first 10 million unit Zelda game to ever sell on any individual platform. Splatoon 2 is next at 7.47 million. Then you have 1-2 Switch at 2.64 million. Mario Tennis Aces at 2.16 million. ARMS at 2.1 million. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze at 1.67 million. And then Xenoblade Chronicles 2 at 1.53 million. Now, Nintendo tends to only show us the top 10 million sellers on Switch on their official website, so I fully expect that once Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee comes out and Super Smash Bros. Come out, that those last kind of two games on the ring, maybe it's ARMS and Xenoblade Chronicles 2, are probably going to end up getting bumped off that list. But, they still count as million sellers, of course. They're just not going to be in the top 10 million sellers on the platform. The fact that the platform could have more than 10 million sellers just coming from Nintendo as a publisher is already pretty astounding and also very, very good news for Switch. Now, remember, these million sellers are just the exclusive Nintendo, games where they were the ones that published them. We don't have any data for third-party titles and how they have done. However, we do know Bethesda over the past week noted that their games are profitable on Switch, and you go where the money is, and Switch is where the money is, so they're going to keep bringing games. So take that for what you will. Diablo 3 review scores are in today for Nintendo Switch, and no surprise, it reviewed very well. Diablo 3 almost always reviews well, and well, it hit an 86 on Metacritic. Now, technically, this would be the lowest cumulative review score for Diablo 3 across all the platforms it's on, but I guess it's to be expected because this is also the weakest in terms of capabilities in the processing capabilities of the system that Diablo 3 has been on. So yeah, it's lower resolution. Yeah, it's lower FPS. Yeah, it's not as convenient as using a mouse, the touch controls, all that stuff. You can't use the pointer controls when it's on TV. So it's not like this perfect version of Diablo 3, but at an 86, what that's telling you is it's a damn good version of it. And the game itself is just fantastic. So well worth picking up on Switch if you want to play it anywhere, even if it's not, the best version of Diablo 3. Lastly, I want to end with two quick stories. One is one that we covered last night about the Zelda TV series. If you haven't heard yet, there's a potential Zelda TV series in the works that might be announced on November 16th by the producer and creator of the Castlevania Netflix series. I'll put a link down to our video on that gives a lot more details. But basically, he's saying he's working with a company in Japan, a video game company, a well-respected company, and working with a well-respected IP. Again, we don't know for sure. There's a place that's saying it's Zelda, and they say they have this information exclusively. So that's just a thing that's out there, and we don't have to wait long to find out. Again, the same day Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee comes out, it's the same day we find out if there's going to be a Zelda Netflix series or something like that. So that's kind of cool. And, well, the last story is actually just a minor one, but I want to remind you folks that today, update 6.1 for the Nintendo Switch OS has released. Normally, we don't cover these updates unless there's something significant in it, and there is a fix for the Nintendo Switch Online service for when you're a new subscriber. Sometimes it doesn't kick in right away. I would consider that more of a minor fix than something worth necessarily making a note in a video. But this fix also happens to include updates to your Joy-Cons, and since for some reason the system itself does a terrible job of telling you that, hey, there's updates for your Joy-Cons, I wanted to tell you guys before we signed out today that, hey, just a reminder, after you download that 6.1 update, be sure to go manually update your Joy-Cons, because usually doing that helps them stay current with current software, and it also helps with calibration issues and various things that some people experience with the Joy-Cons over the past year and a half. That being said, I am Nathaniel Robochance from Nintendo Prime, and if you like this video, you know what to do. And if you dislike the video, that's fine. Hit that dislike button. The more of you that like it, actually, the more people that end up seeing it in their subscription feeds. I know YouTube's weird like that, but you got to play by their game because we're on their platform. It's just the way it is. Be sure to enter that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate Nintendo Switch bundle giveaway down at the Gleam.io link in the description, and I will catch all of you guys in the next one.